Speechcraft, the underestimated power in a negotiation. Talking over each other, interrupting, explaining themselves twice, fighting to be heard in rooms that stopped listening a long time ago. All these are nothing less than a reflection of power. When I came back from France with gravel in my voice and noise in my head, I never would have thought that I would one day command respect in a way that I can win a conversation with a single word. Then a man walked into my pub with a loaded gun and a voice like a cannon. He came to put me in the ground. He left as my business partner, certainly not because my armory was so convincing, at least not the armory my brothers thought of. This skill has saved my life and those of my brothers for more than once. Bear with me, and I'll show you how to command respect with your voice, how to resolve conflict without a fight. 5 lessons, 5 weeks, 5 dimensions of power that took me from the mud of Small Heath to rooms where kings lower their eyes. How I speak, how I carry my body, how I dress, how I move people without them noticing, and how I command the one man who matters most, myself. Today, we will start with the most fundamental lecture of them all, Speechcraft. I am Thomas Shelby, and this is my masterclass. Picture this. Small Heath, 1919. I'd fixed a horse race I had no right to touch. Monaghan boy at Kempton. A whisper here, a powder trick there, and money that belonged to a man who had lawyers on the payroll, police in his pocket, and 2 men by the door whose job descriptions were very short. The racetrack king of England. Every legal course from Birmingham to London paid him tribute, and on the other side, me. A backstreet bookmaker with a pub, a family, and a plan nobody had approved. So the racetrack king did what powerful men do when a nobody touches their money. He came to the garrison himself, kicked the doors open, armed men behind him, a bullet for my wall, and a voice that shook the bottles behind the bar. Every man in that pub went pale. On paper, I was already dead. But negotiations aren't held on paper. They're held in reality, in tone, in tempo, and silence. And there, I am the best armed man in Birmingham. In his opening, he already made a mistake. He opened the way loud men always open, shouting, threatening, a performance built to fill the room with fear. However, I am not a man of fear. I stayed in my chair, silent, counting in my head to 10. And when I finally answered, I went the other route entirely. Quiet, low, friendly yet determined. And something happened that I recommend you test for yourself today. The room went silent to hear me. The most powerful man in English racing had to stop shouting to listen to a bookmaker from Watery Lane. Why did it work? The human ear treats a deep, quiet voice as credible, as a man in control of himself. Researchers have followed this to the top of the world. Leaders with lower voices tend to run larger companies, win more votes, command more trust. That's because our brains are old machines that respect low frequencies. In a business negotiation, a shouting man makes people step back. A quiet man makes people lean in. And when people lean in, they are more open to hearing your proposal. The racetrack owner walked in as the king of every racetrack in England, but in my pub, in that moment, the city had a different king, and the city's king never shouts. When the racetrack king rushed in the garrison, I noticed something else. He was in a hurry. Put all the force and show aside, and you see a man under pressure. His words came fast. Threats stacked on threats, like a man piling sandbags before a flood. He had races running that weekend, money moving, a reputation that said, "Deal with the Shelby problem today." Speed is a confession. When a man is under pressure, his voice betrays him first. The pace climbs, the pitch climbs, the pauses vanish. Every rushed word told me the same thing. This man needs this settled more than I do. So I did the opposite of what my nerves were screaming at me to do. I slowed down. Believe me, I wasn't unmoved, far away from calm. I was very well aware that there were guns in that room, and one of them was pointed at my family's future. Still, I spoke like a man with nowhere to be. Like an agreement had already been reached a week ago, and we were only doing the paperwork today. In retrospect, I think it was exactly this decision that slowed down the momentum and made everyone calm down. A bold bet that conveys a psychological lesson. A man cannot stay frantic across from a man who is perfectly calm. Either he slows to match you, or he unravels, which makes him vulnerable for mistakes. Matching aggression is a rookie mistake, the kind uneducated thugs would do. Unless you want a business conversation to end in a pub brawl, you should always choose a calm and objective voice in a business negotiation. You are not interested in having a shouting competition. You rather want to negotiate serious business terms. The tempo always sets the tone for the conversation. Then I made my first real move. I started straight with the pain point and then went silent. I told the racetrack king there was a fixed race, that I knew how it was done, and then I asked him one qualifying question. Do you know who's robbing your bookies at your own tracks, while you stand here wasting bullets on my wall? And then I did the hardest thing a man can do with a gun in the room. Nothing. My question was already provoking enough. I already figured that this was exactly what was bothering him. Despite being the most respected man in Birmingham at that point, he didn't have a clue what was actually going on. Then I again counted in my head. 1, 2, 3, 4. Around 4 seconds of silence, something happens in the human mind. Conversation researchers have expressed it as silence starting to feel like alarm, like something is broken. And people will do almost anything to make that feeling stop. Most of them will talk. So did he. And in the space of one uncomfortable breath, the king of the racetracks told me what he didn't know, what he feared, and how much the Lee family was truly costing him. Things essential to our business agreement, yet I could never have asked for them directly. A pause does 2 jobs. Before you speak, it makes your words heavier. Men hold their breath for the sentence that takes its time. And after you ask, it becomes pressure. Quiet, polite, unbearable pressure. Most men are terrified of silence, so they spend it like fools. Don't fill the silence. Let the silence fill your pockets. There's a detail from that meeting I want you to remember. At some point, the racetrack king's right hand, his accountant, leaned over and said that they would do the talking. Good, I thought. Let them. By the end of the conversation, they had fired hundreds of words at me. Threats, boasts, explanations of how powerful they were. A man who has to explain his power has already admitted it's in question. I followed a different strategy. I spent perhaps 20 words, but every single ohm hit different. The name of the race, the trick behind it, the Lees bleeding his pitches, what my family could do about it. All information was carefully chosen. I was fully aware the racetrack king was way more powerful than me. Every provocation, every sentence said too much, could result in a disaster for me and my family. It's better to rather speak too little than too much when having a conversation with someone more powerful. Understand this about human nature. We weigh scarce things heavier: gold, land, and the words of a man who rarely spends them. Talk constantly, and your words become small change. Speak rarely, and every sentence arrives like a banknote. Over-explaining reads as apology. The more the other side talked, the less threatening they became. So say it once, clean, then stop. If they didn't understand, they'll ask. If they understood, anything more is retreat. If they don't listen, stop talking. Make every sentence a carefully weighted bullet, and you'll rarely need more than one. And now for the final move, the one the first four were built for. While they have shouted, I collected. His issues with the Lees, the urgency required to save his business operations, his need to look strong in front of his men. From the flood of words he couldn't stop spending. For half an hour, the most powerful man in English racing handed me ammunition and called it intimidation. It was very clear that he would strike a deal with me if I will do it right. Never negotiate blind. Always try to understand what your opponent actually wants and what their best alternative to an agreement with you would be. Just ignore their aggressive talk. Negotiations are not an aggressive act. It's rather about finding a common ground for an agreement. So when they finally had run out of thunder, when the room went quiet and stayed quiet, I gave them my offer. Short, built from everything I had learned in the past 30 minutes. Protection for his bookies, war on the Lees, security for their operations, all guaranteed by the order of the Peaky Blinders. In return, a piece of the racetracks for my family. There was a clear path for him to accept the offer, and just making it look like it was his idea. The man who kicked in my doors to kill me gave me a meeting at Cheltenham, then a partnership, then, without knowing it, the keys to everything he owned. Loud men ask for power. Quiet men already have it. The racetrack king walked out hoarse. I walked out with the deal that would secure my future. This was the first dimension of power, the voice. But a voice on its own is only half the man, because while you speak, your body is holding a conversation of its own, and most men have no idea what it's confessing about them. Next up, part 2 of my masterclass, how I take full control of my body language to make messages land without a single word spoken, and how I ensure to remain unpredictable in conversations. The full masterclass is in the playlist below. It's built that way for a reason, by order of the Peaky Blinders.